Aloha students, welcome to a new school year. I'm Mr. O'Brien, if you didn't already know that. Glad to be here. Today is the very first day of World History course. This is an introductory video and we'll get started and we'll pose a question today. But this is your intro to World History class. I hope you have a great time and I hope you enjoy all the things we're going to do today. Good luck. I'm here for you. All right, here we go. Let's talk about the beginning of the course. And I like to start this course off by basically taking a look at the world as it is today and taking a look at the world as it was previously. I mean, that's really what the study of history is, trying to explain why things are today. A lot of times we should look back at history to find those things out. All right, so you all have been given these world maps. Maps of the world, and you can see that whatever is dark is ocean and whatever is light is land. Okay, and so what we're going to do, and you have two of these, all right, you should have two blanks of these. You were sent these and you were given these. All right, here we go. We're going to title these maps. First one would be, I'm going to call these both the World Languages Map. And obviously they're going to be different because they're two different things, but this is the World Languages Map, and we're going to say pre-1492 AD. All right? Pre-1492 AD. Well, okay, before. All right, so before 1492. And then the question here is the languages spoken worldwide generally before 1492. The second thing we need to say is what happened in 1492? What the heck is going on in 1492? Well, in 1492, basically, ladies and gentlemen, a person from, he was basically hired by this country right here, Spain, and he took a trip on ships and he landed right about there. That's exactly what his trip looked like. And he landed there. And what he discovered for this continent was the Western Hemisphere. He was a discovered the Western Hemisphere for this continent of people, if you will. Now, this is very controversial. Of course, I'm referring to Christopher Columbus, the old fun saying, in 1492, Columbus sailed the ocean blue. There's a lot of controversy, of course, because Europeans arrived here and the subsequent history of that. There's some discussion about whether Columbus was really the first person. Did Vikings come across this way? Did the Chinese come across this way? Who really, obviously there were people in the Americas already. So this discussion is certainly one for debate and certainly interesting, but for our purposes in this course, we're going to talk about the fact that things very much changed after 1492. So what were the languages of the world before 1492? Well, let's start in Europe. What were some of the languages spoken in Europe? Well, you could say, well, there's Spanish, there was Portuguese, there was French, there was English, there was Italian. These are all languages that were native to Europe. There were lots of different ones. The Romance languages, the Latin languages, if you will, the Germanic languages, and there were certainly numerous dialects of each. So you have native European speakers, of course, obviously, and I think you should notice the size of Europe in comparison to the other continents is not very big at all. All right, so let's go over to this really big one, the biggest one of all. What were the main languages spoken here? Well, obviously the Chinese were here. Okay, you had people in Japan, you had people in Korea, you had people in Southeast Asia, you had people in India, etc. And really, you have a bunch of different ones. You have the various dialects of Chinese, and once again, what I would say is you have native Asian languages here, native Asian. Likewise, if you go down to this big, huge continent here, same thing. Probably the most famous one of all is Swahili. That's widely spoken, but there were certainly numerous different tribes all across Africa, each with their unique dialects. And so what we would say is lots of native African languages. Okay? When we think about this smaller, if you will, this is really one of the smaller continents. You think about this, well, we're going to say the same thing. We're going to say native Australian. These are the dominant. We think of the indigenous people of Australia. We call them Aborigines. really any Aborigine. An Aborigine is really any person who is a native to a particular place. And of course, there are certainly Aborigines, quote unquote, if you will, all over Australia still today, and they speak a native language of that area. All right? Now, let's go over here to the Western Hemisphere, and certainly this is the same thing, isn't it? We think about native North American, we think about the history of the North American Native Americans, the North American Indians, if you will. There's estimates that there may have been 500 different tribes in North America, all with a unique language. Of course, certainly in South America, you have native South American languages. Again, tribal, really the whole map. The whole map is really a discussion of tribal languages and differences in dialects and languages, etc. Certainly, we should not forget, not forget the Oceania, the Polynesian Triangle, and we should note that on these islands there were different dialects, different languages, native Polynesians, native Polynesian, take a look at that, okay? All right, now, what do we see here? What are we noticing here? Let's analyze it. I think obviously the first thing you would have to say is the main thing that jumps out at you is native, the word native, local, if you will, indigenous, certainly, okay? How many languages are there before 1492? Well, I would argue, is there a lot or a little? Well, I would argue there is a lot, because what did I keep saying throughout this whole thing? Lots of different tribes, lots of different, therefore, dialects and languages. Remember I said even just 500 right there. So while the earth is not that widely populated, there's not that many people really in the world, what do we have? We have a lot of languages. Okay, now let's move on to the next map, shall we? And I'm sure you can guess what this one is going to be called. This one is going to be called the World Languages Map. And of course, this one will be called post 1492 AD. All right, post 1492. Obviously, after 1492. And the best way to think, the best way to think about this is today. What is spoken in these places today? Let's go in the same order, shall we? Well, what languages are spoken in Europe? Well, it's really, I go through the same list: Spanish, Portuguese, French, English, Italian, German. Really, it's the same. It's native European. All right, native European is still are still, the dominant languages of Europe. The natives have lasted there. Okay, let's go over to Asia, and certainly China. We all know that China and India are the biggest nations there. Japan, of course, is a hugely populated place, and really you're dominant. You still have majority native Asian. But hold on a second. This big country right down here, India. Do you know what language much of business and government and law, what language all those are practiced in India? It's English. Okay? How about down here in Southeast Asia? Did you know there's a lot of French down here? We know that the Chinese, young Chinese people, young Koreans, young Japanese people have, for a long time now, learned English. So what do we see here in sort of Southern Asia? What I'm going to call it some European. How's that sound? Some European. Okay? All right, so let's go over to Africa. Certainly the center of Africa is still a native African language speaking continent. But hold on a second. Down here in the southern part of the country, this is South Africa. Do you know the main language that is spoken in South Africa? It's really English, and there's a lot of Dutch. Okay, well, where is England? Where is the Netherlands? Well, they're both in Europe. So you have to say some European, right? Across northern Africa, especially in Egypt, for example, a lot of business and Government stuff is done in English here. You've got what is used to be called French Tunisia. You got a place in the center called the Belgian Congo. You've got a lot of influence over here in Morocco. There's a lot of French influence. You've got some European. Okay, some European. All right. Okay. Today, what is the main? What is the main language spoken in Australia? Well, you all know this. It's English. Where is England? Well, it's in Europe. So we're going to put European across here. Also, you can see down here. Sorry, New Zealand's cut off, but they speak English as well. All right, and you're starting to see a trend here. All right, I would say North America is really dominated by 3 languages. Certainly English in most of the United States and Canada, Spanish in Mexico, and then there's an area here in Canada, we call them French Canadians, French Quebec. But my point is, England, Spain, and France, where are those languages, where are those countries? They're in Europe, so we have European. Okay, what are the 2 main languages of South America? Well, they're Spanish and Portuguese. Spain and Portugal are in Europe. European, so we put that here. Okay, so let's go out here to the Pacific and let's note that we have a lot of still native Polynesian, but I don't think there's any disputing the fact that, for example, these 3 little not more than 3, excuse me. These dots right here, really the dominant language here is English. You've heard of French Tahiti. Okay, so I'm going to put out here, I'm going to put some European. All right, now this map is complete. And again, what I would say is, what is the thing that jumps out at you here? The thing that just should jump out of you, and I think it is obvious, is what's the main word here? Well, it's European. So you can see that isn't it interesting, that as the population has grown on Earth, especially post 1492, as the population has increased, what has happened to the total number of languages worldwide? Well, it's decreased. So remember, you had a small population worldwide with a lot of languages. Now we have a huge population worldwide with fewer languages. Okay? All right, now, what is my point here? Why am I doing this on the very first day of this course? What is my point? What am I getting at? What are you driving at here, Mr. O'Brien? Well, this discussion and this thing and these maps are going to really sort of drive our course about how the world is the way it is. And so what we do is in the classroom, we swing this thing around to the back of the room. And when you get to this classroom, you'll see that I have on the back board back here a bunch of what are called essential questions. And so what I sort of do is I sort of pose a question to you all, and we're on the lookout for it as the course goes along. Okay, so there's a whole bunch of world history questions there. We'll get to those. But what I really have over here is across the top is what I call the course question. The course question is, why were Europeans so successful in influencing the globe after 1492 AD? And here's the key, and not someone else. Okay? So what I'm asking here is, ladies and gentlemen, the course question, let me get this back here. Let me get this worked out. Okay? The course question. This is the course question. Once again, why were Europeans so successful in influencing the globe after 1492 AD and not someone else? And what I mean by that is, why does this map say all over it European? It says European, and that's the fact of it. But why does it say European? Why doesn't this map say, I don't know, why doesn't it say Asian, 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 Asian? Why doesn't it say that? It doesn't say that, does it? It says European. Likewise, I guess I could ask, why doesn't it say, I don't know, African, 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 African? It doesn't, does it? It says European. Okay. Why doesn't it say North American, North American, North American, North American, North American? It doesn't, does it? It says European. Dare I say, why doesn't the post map, why doesn't it say, I don't know, I mean, why not ask? Why doesn't it say Polynesian, 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 Polynesian. It doesn't, does it? It says European. Okay, this is the question I'm asking to start this course off, and what I would like you to be all on the lookout for as this class goes along. Why were Europeans the ones? Okay, now, when you come to see me in class, or I want you to think about this, regardless of how this all works out, when we see each other, I want you to think about a couple of things, okay? First of all, what I'll ask you is, okay, that's the course question. Why wasn't it someone else? What theory or hypothesis can you come up with, can you personally sort of think of, maybe right off the top of your head, as to why it was Europeans? Can you think of a reason? What might possibly be, have you ever thought about it? Why is the world the way it is? Okay. I would also say that my course question, there's a word missing in my course question. There should be another word added. All right? Now, here's your hint. It should be added early in the question. So it's a kind of long question. It's this new word should be added early. And the best way to sort of figure this out is what are the main European languages on the post 1492 map, on this map? What are the main European languages? Okay, so think about that. And then what is the word? Can you figure it out? Okay. All right. As we go along, folks, this is going to be what we're going to be on the lookout for, the answer to this course question. All right? So, I hope you found this interesting. I hope that this has made you do some thinking, ask some questions, maybe think about something you've never thought about before. But once again, this will be it. All right, folks? All right, students, thank you so much for your attention. We will see you next time. Aloha.